I call the honourable member Eugenie Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While the bill may not have a lot of legal consequence, I think it's very significant in terms of its cultural consequences, because there has been a long history in this country of local authorities not paying due regard to Māori interests when it comes to siting rubbish dumps, oxidation ponds, sewage plants, and those have often been sited by or discharging into waterways. And I think very grateful to Te Roroa Flavel for his explanation of the history of this bill, and it was certainly brought to the Select Committee's attention too in the joint submission by Ngā Pautaki and the Tauranga City Council. Because the Mount Maunganui Borough Council and the reclamation that it did was of gross offence to Ngā Pautaki, and that is because the harbour was a taonga, and the reclamation and the discharge of sewerage was an offence to the values of that ancestral landscape because it didn't recognise the significance of the harbour as taonga. And that was both in terms of the siting of the wastewater treatment plant on the reclamation and the proposals to discharge effluent into the southernmost part of Tauranga Harbour. And then when, as Te Roroa Flavel explained, the siting of the pipe that took the effluent out to an ocean outfall, and the siting and construction of that pipe through an urapa, a sacred burial ground. So these sorts of things, Mr. Speaker, have been done by local authorities repeatedly, and it is in this bill, by repealing this legislation, repealing the ability for the council to continue with the reclamation, that we are putting things right. And, Mr. Speaker, it was opposed vigorously in the 1970s, the whole sewage treatment plant and the discharges. And I think we need to remember, when communities and Māori are active on other issues to protect their taonga, to protect their natural environment, that they have a very valid point in protecting what is important to them, the natural environment, and not just dismissing that opposition as getting in the way of development, as this government often does. Because it was back in the 1970s, if you read the Waitangi Tribunal's report, that you had the Kaumātua vigorously opposing the reclassification of the waters in the harbour that would have allowed the discharges, opposing the reclamation, government agencies opposing the reclamation, like the Ministry of Fisheries, the Commissioner for the Environment at the time, and yet it still proceeded. So, Mr. Speaker, we have moved on since then, and it was enormously heartening at Select Committee to have one submission on the bill, a joint submission by Ngā Pautaki and the Tauranga City Council, which has of course succeeded the Mount Maunganui Borough Council, supporting this bill, explaining some of the history. And they gave evidence that there has been now a much more constructive working relationship between Ngā Pautaki and the Council. That has been manifest in a standing committee on the Council to facilitate better engagement with iwi, and by a commitment by the City Council to the establishment of wetlands and other treatment which removes the solids from the discharges which go through the ocean outfall. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a very good bill. It's a bill that the Green Party supports, and it should be passed into law. Thank you.